Week 6, Politics and the Internet by Alexia Snyder, Amber Ryan, and Caitlin Boyd. For this week's discussion, we will talk about the following concepts from Chapter 6 in TV Read's Digitalized Lives, Culture, Power, and Social Change in the Internet Era, in Chapter 6 in Vincent Miller's Understanding Digital Culture. From each of these texts, we will discuss how politics is finding its way to the Internet and what effect it is having on people. Read 2014 poses the following questions as a look into the ongoing debate between scholars as to the effect the Internet has on democracy. There are two arguments. One that believes the Internet has brought on greater political wisdom, and one that believes the Internet has increased political intensity as users silo their searches to the current ideology. Each side of the coin have validity and are great questions to ponder as we continue to discuss through this week's text. Cass Sunstein, in his book Republic.com, argues, most people using the web to follow politics do not seek out a variety of perspectives, but instead seek out information and opinion sources that match their existing ideological biases. Think about it. If you watch Fox News, you are more likely to follow Fox News commentators on Twitter and Facebook. To go one step further, if you follow Fox News on Twitter, Twitter will then recommend you to follow President Trump and other Republicans. Therefore, you are more likely to have conservative posts in your newsfeed that link you to other conservative articles, blogs, and sites. Read 2014 references a Pew Internet study that showed U.S. citizens were not better informed in 2017 than in 1989, which was before the Internet. That is because we gravitate towards like-minded people. While we may have access to more information, we generally only research more of one side than the other. As we seek out information online, we become part of a greater community through the awareness that we are now privileged to. Social movements have been around for decades. People have led protests driving awareness for the labor movement, women's rights movement, human rights movement, environmental movement, and much more. Each of these movements all existed before the Internet, but the Internet has added a virtual component and has provided a microphone, if you will, to those in pursuit of change. Through the Internet, people are now able to create virtual groups in order to talk about ideas and meetups. Read 2014 states, one of the secrets to successful social movements is mobilizing existing social networks and turning them onto activism. Read 2014 states, digital social movement activity includes both new ways to accomplish older forms of organizing and truly new forms only possible in the Internet era. When we think of the word activism in the traditional sense, we think of marches, protesters, posters, and rallies. However, now that the Internet messages can be spread in a much faster way, people can post to social media sites and advocate for a cause or communicate a protest of policies, organizations. Some do not view social media activism in a serious way. The term slacktivism comes from critics of social media activists and viewing them as more as slackers posing as activists. Thinking back to the last election, social media was filled with messages from liberals and conservatives alike to take more actions on certain policies. While there is much critique from traditional activists towards slacktivism, there is no denying that messages have enhanced and expanded by the, as Read states, low cost, high speed, and extensive geographic reach of the Internet. Since the Internet is mostly mobile for people as they utilize their cell phones instead of desktops, being able to interact, take pictures, and take video anywhere more conveniently. Read 2014 supports by stating, the ability of movement groups to live stream coverage of their events can be crucial in several respects. The news does this all the time now as they are able to host live streams via Facebook. You as a viewer are able to be right in the middle of the action, even if you're far away. As far as organizing goes, it is in the public's favor as there are now different social media accounts in which notify people of different things such as awareness and occurrences of sexual harassment. Read discusses maptivism, the use of mapping techniques to visualize, represent, and organize around a given social issue. The example that Read gives is HarassMap, which is exposed sexual harassment and where they occur so people can avoid those areas and be on the lookout for perpetrators. It is also not uncommon at all to hear about WikiLeaks as Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden has most recently made it better known. According to Read, WikiLeaks refers to itself as a form of investigative journalism that relies on whistleblowers within corporations, governments, and militaries to expose practices which they deem illegal or harmful to the public's right to know. Without people like Edward and Chelsea, the public may be in the dark about various topics. As far as cyberterrorism goes, it is a main concern as the government, military, and large businesses complete work online and have important information on their servers. Miller states, as the economy's infrastructures and cultural transmissions and even military capabilities of advanced industrial nations become more and more integrated into and dependent upon the Internet and other ICTs, are more likely it is that ICT infrastructure could become targets for attack. In Chapter 6, Miller discusses the politics of information and the power of ICTs, information and communication technologies. As the Internet has become a basic tool for our everyday lives, our political and social environments have also seen change. Miller really digs deep into the ways ICTs have changed how we interact with politics and how we receive our information, how the face of social activism has changed, how we use ICTs to protest, and the new dawn of cyber warfare and cybercrime. Miller states that in an ideal world, ICTs would create information democracy, which is providing more awareness perspective on different issues, democratization of decision-making power, which is more direct participation of people in government and political processes, and deliberative democracy, which is access to more information and more decision-making power, which creates more engaged citizens. New social movements, or NSMs, have emerged thanks to ICTs. These movements tend to be focused on social change in lifestyle or culture and are driven by individual identity, choices, rights, and interests. Due to this fact, NSMs are often issue-oriented as opposed to ideological. Miller points out that since membership is less demanding than traditional interest groups, individuals often identify or belong with multiple social movements. Miller points out that these general effects that ICTs have had on politics including class-based politics are now being replaced with identity politics, that there is an increased significance of media within politics, and since ICT communication tools are constant and uncontrolled, it is hard to control the information. An issue about ICT-enabled politics is that a movement can gain a quick flash of awareness and following, but quickly sizzle out when the next and latest and greatest cause comes up on a newsfeed. Miller goes on to discuss the new age of disobedience thanks to the technological changes, known as digital disobedience or hacktivism. We now see a new age of disobedience, activism, and destruction. Traditional forms of civil disobedience and activism tended to target the physical structure of society through acts such as sit-ins in offices and public institutions or blocking roadways. The point of civil disobedience is to voice disapproval by interrupting the normal flow of operations of an organization or to affect the status quo. Hacktivism now includes things like defacement, which means defacing a website and changing the content, distributed denial of service DDoS attacks, disabling the network with a flood of requests, ping storms. Network is inundated with ping requests. Email bombing. Flooding an organization's email to shut it down. Malicious code attacks. Releasing a virus into code of a website. And redirect. Redirecting a web page of a company. The game of war has now extended to the cyber world. According to Miller, cyber warfare is the information war. Its actions are politically motivated and originate from rival states or enemies. Miller defines cyber warfare as actions intended to protect, exploit, corrupt, deny, or destroy information to achieve a significant advantage, objective, or victory. Usually the target is a physical asset, a soft asset like information, or a physical asset like moral or mental state. Cybercrime is a set of behaviors distinguished by the motives of financial gain, mischief, deviance, or non-politically motivated desire. This includes crimes we hear on of the news, such as hackers that collect Social Security information, bank numbers, and other important data. Now that you have listened to our discussion for the week, we have a few questions that we pose to you. Number 1. Miller states, access to more information and more decision-making power would create more engaged citizens. Do you think the positives outweigh the negatives when it comes to politics and cyberspace? Number 2. Miller also discusses how the internet will create a short-term buzz around an issue in order to maximize a short-term gain. Can you give us a recent example? And number 3. Reed discusses the phenomenon of netroots activism. Have you ever ran across any online protesters? Please remember to post a response to these above questions by 11:55 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, and then thoughtfully respond to 2 classmates by 11:55 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday.